is some guy, Rob Russo, some leftist based in Canada. I was turned on to this sick individual, and I found this.
two, 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 two. Hello. Two, two. You can count on me. You're gonna have good old Rob to talk you through all this. Good old
beer
Rob
brewed here,
to
haha. It is used to make the bub brew beer here in this refill Worth Rider. Thanks for the Great Lakes. I wonder what.
Oh, jeez. Sorry. Jay, thank you for the 22 months. No, that wasn't just you, Lodane. I was trying to open up the chat in another window here. And I opened up the stream. Beer brew here is just to make the beer brew here in this refill Worth Rider for the Great Lakes. I wonder what. What a guy. What a guy. Thanks again, Jay, for the 22 months. Dick Pendarren, people have so many channel points on this channel. Just so many. One day, one of these days, I will move on doing something with the channel points. Are you saying the mic hiss is back? The mic hiss situation? Well, that's just wonderful. That's just wonderful. I love that. I love that that's happening, actually. I think that's good. It's good to me that that's happening. That thing that I had fixed, which is now apparently happening again. That makes me happy. Mike is also loud. Well, one thing that happened was my computer lost power last night. My computer lost power last night, so it may have reset some fucking setting somewhere. That's not good. That's not good, because I fixed that problem, hadn't I? I'd fixed that issue. Hold on 1 second, let me just do a little test here. Motherfucker. Motherfucker. I'm not going to be able to fix that right now. I think it's a power supply issue with my PC. The mic was plugged into a different port last time, and I moved it to the front port, and then it seemed to work. But I think because my computer reset, it's fucked with the power supply again. Need to reset the old flux capacitor. It's not like a warning. Kijiji Genie, I appreciate what you're trying to do here. I appreciate what you're trying to do. It's not a nice warm blanket. I hate it. I can't have this. It's driving me crazy. It's not a warm blanket. Stop trying to humor me. Stop trying to make me feel better about this. Whoa, what's that? Hey, Gigi, let's check this out. Jesus. Is that real, Kijiji? Wow. I don't know. I quite liked Dennis Schroeder, but it's been a little bit disappointing. I don't think he really made the impact that people were hoping that he did. Dinwiddie's pretty good. Don't totally know what to make of that, honestly. And they made that weird trade for Kelly Olynyk earlier as well. What are they doing? What are they cooking over there? Hey Husker, what's up? This morning I did an interview spot on I did a guest spot on I did another episode of The East is a Podcast, which should be fun. We talked about what the hell's wrong with Canada. Yeah, Kelly's good. Kelly Olynyk's good to have on the team.
Count on me.
They may be trading Pirtle as well too, so it might be in.
Why is this badge so sticky?
It may be prelude to that. Crackety Kraken, thanks so much. 36 months of Prime from Crackety Kraken. The elite, extremely elite, and extremely exclusive 3-year Pearl sub badge. Beautiful. Wonderful. Congratulations to you, Crackety Kraken, and thank you for all the support. 3 entire years of Prime from Crackety Kraken. Thank you. I'm tempted to try and fix the mic issue, but I don't know if it's a good idea. Just don't know if it's a good idea. It's gonna really bother me though. It really bothers me. Oh, sorry. I just got a whisper from Matron's Militia. I was in subscriber mode only. I got followed. For anyone, sorry if you're a non-subscriber and we're trying to chat. I was in subscriber mode only. I got swallowed. I got followed by a couple dozen bots, like all at the same time yesterday. And I didn't know if there was some kind of weird thing going on with bots. I had no idea. And I just, for whatever reason, for safety reasons, I switched over to sub only, which I've now disengaged. Were they Russian bots spreading Putin propaganda? Possibly. It's possible. Like the Bush song, swallowed, followed by a bunch of weird bots. That's right. I'm going to kind of miss Dennis Schroeder. I like Dennis Schroeder. They just wanted to sell you Brain Force, now back in stock at InfoWarrior store. I got to sell some kind of brain pills, I think. I think that would be a good career move for me. If I started selling some kind of brain pills. They were called Bush X in Canada. They weren't called Bush X everywhere. I thought they were always called Bush X, but they just were. It just got shortened to Bush. You want to get rid of the hiss, just move all those snakes to another room. I should become a snake guy. Imagine if I became a snake guy. A girl with ponytail. Start having a bunch of aquariums and
you can count on me,
reptiles
good
and
old
snakes
Rob, to
and stuff.
talk you through all this.
I wake up and go, man, I want to think like Rob Doug's. Give me some pills. Exactly. Brain pills made in China that turn you into a gay communist. Who says no? Who says no? Diego, thank you for the gifted sub. Am I comfortable? I don't know if I'm comfortable around snakes. I don't particularly care for them. I'm fine. I'm fine with them. I think just like snake people though. I don't want to disrespect anyone if you're a snake person. I feel like it's a specific kind of guy though. It's like a specific kind of guy that you don't necessarily want to be. I'd hate to be some kind of repressed closet case. Yeah, can you imagine? Jesus. Did you see there's new spiced Coke? No, I didn't. I didn't see that. I want to become a terrarium guy. I've started to get some terrarium content on TikTok. For some reason. I don't think I am a terrarium guy, but maybe it's kind of interesting to look at videos on it. The real brain pill is melatonin. Sleep deprivation is a norm under capitalism. I actually took some melatonin the other night for the first time, and it fucked me up more than I was anticipating. The whole next day I was kind of like, ugh. Though I was also drinking the night before, so maybe that had something to do with it as well. I don't know. Remains to be seen. I take about 10-15 milligrams of melatonin at night. I don't even think I took that much at all. Kind of messed me up though. It did help me fall asleep, but I didn't. My thing is I want to be able to sleep in. I want to be able to sleep in past like 7 a.m. That's my thing. And I was still up. I went to bed fine. I got to sleep, you know. I slept through the night and I still woke up at like 7:30 a.m. I'm tired of waking up at 7:30 a.m., chat. I don't want to. I mean, some days I have to. A lot of days I have to, actually, and that's fine. I will. I would like to, though, on the days that I don't have to wake up at 7:30 a.m., not wake up at that time. And 7:30 is almost like, oh, wow. Like, I slept in a little bit here. That's at the point I'm at now. Yeah, Sean, that's it. I mean, some days I have to, like, I bring my kid to school mostly every day, so it's like on most days I have to. But there are a few days a week where I don't have to. And it would be nice, even to just if I woke up at like 8:30, 9, you know? I would be like, hell yeah. Hell yeah. I can't do it, though. I just wake up. My doc prescribed me Ambien, which worked great, but I didn't want something habit-forming. I went melatonin instead. Doc says I can go to 20 milligrams, but I stay around 10 or 15 if I feel I need to. So you must have some really real issues like falling asleep at night, I guess, Crystal? Yeah, that's not so much my problem. My problem is more that I just don't want to wake up at 7 a.m. anymore. How about you wake up and then hang out in bed and read your pages or do yoga? That's a good point, Lodane. Both of those are good points. Both of those are excellent points. But I want to sleep, though. That's the whole thing. I want to sleep more. And then you try taking the melatonin at 7 a.m. There we go. That's the solution. You call it sleep. I call it a grinding opportunity lost. I grind so much, chat. Okay, I've been grinding. I've grinded. I can't grind anymore. I'm grinded out. You're thinking of gooning? No. No. How do you think I ended up in this spot? My hair's doing something funny here, isn't it? Have you considered napping? I've been embracing the nap lifestyle more. I have been embracing the nap lifestyle more. Like I was saying on Sunday, I took a bit of melatonin on Saturday night and drank a few beers. I woke up on Sunday. I was a little groggy. I took a while to get going, but then I had a nice Sunday where I did a lot of lying around and was a little bit productive. Did a bunch of cleaning. I forgot that the background music had been turned off. I cleaned for a few hours and then I took a little nap, and that was nice. I've heard that drinking more Diet Coke improves sleep. You know, I've never really got the whole like caffeine-free Coke thing, because caffeine is half the reason I drink this stuff. I do think, though, it would be nice to have a case of, maybe at the next time I'm at the store if I can find it, get a little case of caffeine-free Diet Coke, so you can have a consequence-free, guilt-free night Coke sometimes. As a little nighttime little beverage. Without worrying about it too much. Dissolve the melatonin into the Coke. Yep. So, in all honesty, folks, I don't know what we're doing today. I have no plan for anything. I have no plan for anything whatsoever. Like I said, I did the East is a podcast earlier today with Seema. That was really cool. Yelling about Canada. But I really have no plan for what we're going to talk about today. Nothing really even went on that's very exciting to talk about. I have nothing really interesting to report. The whole thing about post-tour satisfaction of Jordan Peterson is like, absolutely. That's one thing that he's right about, but I think he kind of lures people in with this very common sense idea of just like, if you are living in filth, maybe it's a good idea to do that less so. You know, pick up your room a little bit. You're going to feel better about yourself. And then attaching it with all this weird, like, kind of pseudo-religious, crypto-fascist, bizarre, philosophical, pseudo-philosophical ramblings. That was weird. That's weird. Cleaning your room, I think, can be very helpful. You know, go wash the dishes. Go wash the bathroom floor. Yeah, I think that can be helpful. Pick up the cans from your desk. You know? Go pick up the cans from your desk. I think this can be helpful. It's when you tie it into all kinds of weird, wacky shit, I think, is when we run into trouble. When you're simultaneously beefing with, like, Sesame Street. For making kids gay. It's basic life advice without the pseudoscience. Compliments of Rob. That's right. You don't need to have that in there. And yeah, Jungian psych can be helpful, but not the way Peterson misuses it. Yeah, for sure. He just like... all he does is like use a bunch of like sort of pseudo-academic, pseudo-intellectual, pseudo-philosophical jargon to kind of disguise his like lack of understanding around basic issues like Marxism, or his like extremely reactionary ideas about women or people of color or the LGBTQIA plus community. There's no real philosophy there. It's purely just like it tricks stupid people into thinking that he's like a serious person, essentially. When you cry and Kermit the Frog voice it with the woke mind virus. Yeah. Did you see them? I saw someone posting about Will Wheaton losing his mind about Elmo being attacked by Larry David. I did see that. I didn't look into it beyond that, though. I was kind of just like, oh, that's a shame. And just sort of moved on. Yeah, that's a good point, HTA. Just like what Sartre said about the anti-Semites in Germany. No ideology, they just want to make you mad. Yeah, and yeah, they delight in their own sort of contradictions. Although Jordan Peterson, like, I don't know. I think that he thinks that he is a brilliant genius. I don't think he's like deliberately like misleading people or like misrepresenting anything. I just think he's a dumb guy that thinks he's really smart and has been coddled in this kind of academic environment for his entire lifetime to think he's some brilliant genius, and he believes it. He believes this about himself. What's Wheaton's politics like? He's like a progressive liberal, like, if you can call it that. He's like a Biden bro. I want to make Rob mad, says Orb Lady. Well, Orb Lady, you make me mad all the time by mocking me and belittling me, and you saying that I'm small, saying that I'm tiny, and that I fit in your pocket, or I fit in your bag, or whatever it is. That you could beat me up, that you could wrestle, if we wrestled, that you would win. So don't worry about that. You got that under control. You got that on lockdown. Wrestled. You gonna wrestle me, Mr. Lawler? Is that what they do in Memphis, Tennessee, Mr. Lawler? The narcissists, they have little or no empathy, therefore others don't really exist. So of course he's the smartest, most important human because he's the only human in his twisted reality. Yeah, or Elon Musk is another guy like this. And both of these men, just like, they're both dumb people that even dumber people think are smart. Both of them. They're intellectuals for dumb people. And now I saw Elon Musk just like getting mad about the idea of Disney hiring a black actress for a Pirates of the Caribbean movie. I love how Elon Musk, by the way, is like openly propagating an idea right now. Like he continues doing this, that like black people are not capable of flying airplanes because of their like genetic deficiencies. And that any black person gets hired as like as an airline pilot is purely because of diversity, ethics, and inclusion, and is actually like dangerous for people. Like this is Elon Musk, beneficiary of billions of dollars of U.S. government subsidies. This modern day, like who's framed as this like brilliant genius. This is what he's spending his time doing. And suggesting that like there's white genocide happening because the government is importing millions of brown people to destroy the white race, led by Joe Brandon. Whom amongst us would think a white South African would think that way? It's really something else, huh? You can take the boy out of the apartheid. Like he's really saying this. Like that's a whole meme like on the right now. That like it's dangerous for black people to pilot airplanes. There's really, for these people, like there's no reason that a black person should get hired for any job. Like they really have told themselves that that kind of thing, like wokeness, affirmative action, critical race theory, DEI, whatever it is, whatever random thing that they're obsessed with. They really think that that's the only reason that a black person should ever get hired for a job.
Talk you through all this.
Hey Rob, loved the Insurgents EP with Paris Marks last month. Keep up the good work, smiley face.
Oh, sorry. Thanks for 24 months of Prime and congratulations for the 24-month shimmering golden sub badge. I'm still perusing Twitter, but once blocks are no longer allowed, I'm definitely out. I don't know if that's even happening, though. I think they mentioned that a couple months ago, and there was a big outcry, and they haven't done anything about it. I'm staying on there. I don't know. I still feel, regardless of all the downsides to it, that Twitter is probably one of the best outlets in order to share progressive or socialist or Marxist anti-imperialist ideas and finding an audience for that. You know, with all the deficiencies and with everything that's going wrong with it, you know, a lot of pro-Palestine content has been shared on Twitter over the last 4 months that maybe I don't think is really possible on other platforms. Even with the censorship and even with all the horrible decisions that he's made, like I personally was censored. But I've also written tweets over the last 4 months that have been seen by like millions of people about Israel committing genocide and about, you know, Palestinians, like supporting Palestinians. And you can yell at dumb fucks there. You know, if you're on Blue Sky, I'm glad you're having fun. Blue Sky, I feel, is just more of like kind of an echo chamber. I've watched interviews with Elon Musk, and not once has he said anything smarter or more insightful than what a 10-year-old who watches dumbed down, ridiculously optimistic for the future popular science fiction YouTube vids would say. Elon Musk doesn't know much about anything in the world. No, he's a fucking con man. He really had us convinced, maybe, I'm not going to speak for everyone, but he really had the people convinced, the world convinced that he's this brilliant coder and engineer, rocket scientist. This monorail bitch. I'm glad that stuck. I'm glad that one stuck. That's good. He's been spoiled and coddled. It's something that people really shouldn't underestimate. It's like a whole side of their personalities doesn't develop. Yeah, it's like a child. You're spoiled and coddled from birth, from your own family, and then you end up in this position where the fucking government is spoiling and coddling you as well. And you're surrounded by all these sycophants and yes men. That's why the Twitter broke his brain, really, because people started yelling at him on there. It started puncturing that little bubble. That's when he started freaking out about the woke mind virus, because surely this is the only way to explain the fact that people don't like me. This must be the reason. We've got to purchase this platform, no matter how much it costs, to do something about
Rob
this.
Russo, some leftist based in Canada. I was turned on to this sick individual, and I found this.
Doc Hollywood, thanks for the raid. Hello. Hello, Doc. Hello, Doc Hollywood Raiders. Thursday greetings. Thanks for the raid. How is the Doc Hollywood stream today? Then he humiliated himself on stage with Chappelle. That was just great too, wasn't it? That was great. Because then there's no hiding from it, And he tried just so many ways to spin it. Oh, it was this left-wing San Francisco crowd that are all paying to see Chappelle. He really thought that he was going to, those were his people, and he was going to be embraced, and he was just like, what's going on here? What's happening? Con man because he believes he's that genius. Fake alpha, megalomania, narcissism, but when reality challenges them, they turn to power and control. Yeah, absolutely. And so you see how Jordan Peterson and Elon are kind of related in that respect. I like to play the free Epic games on Thursday. It's Doki Doki Literature Club Plus this week. That sounds fun. Got booed, did I'm rich bitch, then made some weird arm movements. Incredible. That was really one of the most painful things. That was one of the most painful things that I've ever seen. And he even fucked up. He messed up the reading of it. He didn't even say it properly. He sounded ridiculous. It's 3 words. How hard is this? And what is Chappelle doing as well? Chappelle, he at one point was legitimately this brilliant comedian, I think. And wasn't even a joke. It's just here's Elon Musk. Here he is. Hey Elon, say I'm rich bitch. Okay, good. That's really, what are you doing? What are we doing here? What is this? Why would anyone watch this? Why would anyone like this? Yeah, he really thought they'd eat it up. That's what I mean. It's just embarrassing. You see his new material as well. You see the clips from his special, and it's just the most fast. It's like a schoolyard. The most. It's barely even a joke. It's just it's telling the worst, least intelligent, lowest common denominator comments about trans people. For the 5th special in a row. He's done 5 specials in a row where he just complained because look at that, Jordan Peterson, Elon Musk, and Chappelle. You see, I think there's kind of a connection there because people criticized him once, and he's like, whoa, what? Because trans people said, can you do a little bit better on this? They criticized him mildly. He received mild criticism for one fucking comment. And then 5 specials later, he's still not over it. He's still fucking complaining about it. And like I said, not even doing jokes. Be just being like, trans people I'm gonna go to prison and pretend to be a woman and then just like rape people. And it's like, that's your joke. That's your joke. Like, what is that? Like we've said before, we talked about it the other day, like that I saw, it was Anthony Jeselnik that was talking about it, but I don't know if it's a quote that goes beyond that. I can't remember someone pointing it out, but it's when you get away with it. Comedy is when you get away with it. Like, you can tell jokes about anything. Like, tell a joke. If someone tells a joke about a trans person and it's actually funny, it's like, okay. Maybe if you're trans and or non-binary in the chat, you can disagree. Like, that's fine, obviously, too. But like, you can joke about whatever you want. But when you're just being a bully, when you're just being crude, crass, punching down, and people get mad at you, it's not a joke. You're not being funny. Chappelle used to make witty jokes and skits against racism, satire against billionaires being evil. Now he's taking checks from the wealthiest people on earth and sounds like Fox News. Like, that was the whole thing about Chappelle leaving Chappelle's show at the height of its popularity as well, because he saw there was this like reactionary audience of white people that were using some of his humor as an excuse to be racist themselves. And he was like, I don't want anything to do with this, which was like a choice that had a lot of integrity to it. And now he's back there 20 years later. He's out doing the exact same thing, but even worse. Just bizarre. Being rich just fucks you up. There should be a limit on how rich you can be, honestly. A low limit. There should be a maximum amount of money that you're allowed to have. Like you said before, you invent a kind of like an amazing product, an amazing like medical discovery. You make it scientific discoveries. You do something. You're an athlete. You do something incredible with your life. You write books or poetry or films or music that connects with people. Good. Like, you can profit from that. You can benefit from that. I think people should benefit from and be able to be successful, but like to a maximum, to an upper limit. And you get to the upper limit, and we say as a society, you did it. Good job. You won. You made it to the top. Good for you. And then you can't go beyond that, because it's like helping them. It's saving them from themselves. Look at how it just destroys people's brains. Look at how being wealthy and like touching that kind of like power and influence just like makes people go insane. Maybe the state can be involved and take some of it away from them every year. Call it something like the max. Yeah, something like that. We can workshop that. Yeah, upper limit and then beyond is either taxed at 100% to pay for society, or you get investigated for robbing your employees. Yeah. And like, it's not punishing people. You did it. Congratulations. You have a nice place to live. You have vacation. You can get a nice car, whatever it is. Like, good job. That's enough, though. The rest of the money goes towards improving society, instead of allowing them to increasingly strip everyone else from a decent life. Yeah, and like, let's start with 100% inheritance tax. And like we've talked about, like the whole New Deal, like tax situation, like this marginal tax rate was like 90%. That was the most economically prosperous time in American history. Lo and behold, all these social programs are put in place. Many people excluded from these programs, but like certainly better than what was there before. And there's a marginal tax rate of 90%, and lo and behold, people can afford homes and go to school and afford to like live decent lives. And you can build infrastructure. You have money to build schools and infrastructure, roads, power plants. whatever else, you know? Shut up and put on the pinch goggles. I really don't want to be a naysayer about that technology. Like I thought the iPad was going to be a failure as well, and it became like a huge success. So I just don't think that's like I think I was mentioning it yesterday, but I saw someone saying like, you don't need to own a TV. You don't need to own a laptop screen or a TV or any of that stuff once you have these goggles. It's like, yeah, if you want to always be wearing a headset on your head anytime you want to look at anything, okay, then you wouldn't have to have one. Are we really, as a society, ready to encourage that, though? Any single time I want to look at a screen, I'm going to have a big thing on my head? Maybe it's hubris, but I'm 99% sure it wouldn't change me at all, except greatly improve my mental health and allow me to greatly help others. I think the real issue is the kind of person that seeks out infinite money and power. Well, that's a part of it, absolutely, definitely. We reward the people that step over their friends and neighbors on the way, and that don't have this like powerful narcissism and hubris that like puts them in that position. We reward the people that get to that point, like a kind of sick person. iPad has to mainly be a success because it's wealthy people's new babysitter. I see babies in carts at the supermarket who won't look up once from their tablets. Yeah, like Timaeus testified, you know, I've got a kid who's 8 years old, and like I worry about his screen time. He watches quite a lot of screen time. But like that's one thing that we never did that I feel good about. Like we were never just like, even now, like he doesn't really look at a lot of iPads or screens. He'll watch TV, like he watches YouTube on the TV. But we never, ever, when he was a baby or a toddler, put him in front of like an iPad or whatever. Yeah, the wild pinching in front of you is my favorite part. No possible social mishaps possible there. Well, it's like, if you're alone, okay. You know, if you're alone, sure. You have your big 100-inch display in front of you. Like, it's kind of, I look at it and it's kind of neat. Like, you can take all the different displays and place them throughout your apartment, so you're walking through and you go, oh, that's there and that's there. But like, you have to have a helmet on at all times for that. And if you're with anyone else, they're completely cut off. Like, it's just inherently antisocial. Even if you can see, like the whole thing is you can see in front of you and it's augmented reality, but it's like they're still in this totally other world. You couldn't imagine trying to have a conversation with someone that's wearing that headset and they're just looking at you like, and they've got like Na'vi eyes from Avatar just going, oh yes, and they're like pinching, like you don't know what they're looking at. They're like, could be doing anything else. They've got like 3 screens open. Trying to have a conversation with someone like that, like your fucking family, your husband is just walking around with a helmet on, or your wife, or whoever. And you're supposed to just like exist in the same space like it's normal. People are already fucked like that with a phone, but I guess there's a difference though for me between holding an object in your hand and you're still occupying the same space as someone. I think it becomes different when someone's like immersed in their own little augmented reality virtual world that you're not included in. Yeah, once everyone's wearing the headsets, then we'll be good. I think we just got to get to the holograms. That's what I was saying. I think we need the holograms. Oh, I know they're not easy, but that's why I don't think this technology is there yet at all. The thing with these devices and technologies is that they never supplant what we think they will in the way that we think they will. Like VR companies think you'll go to work and you also use VR at the office. Somehow I doubt that very much. Yeah, and I see some utility, like being on an airplane. You know, I think that'd be kind of cool. Oh, I'm on an airplane. I can have my big 80-inch display of the movie that I'm watching, and I can be in my own little world in this kind of annoying situation. or you can project like crazy landscapes and stuff, or you're on the treadmill at the gym if you want to wear a headset on the treadmill, and you project a crazy like mountain outdoor landscape, things like that. Like that could be kind of neat. Like I sort of see the appeal with that, but to me it's still really, it's not this device that you can just have on all the time and like you're going to interact with people like that. Yeah, I don't know. If someone gave me one for free, I imagine there's things that I could find to use it that would be interesting. But the idea of just wearing it all the time, oh, I don't need a TV anymore. I'm just going to wear this big bulky helmet all the time. That I'm not so sure about. And they're going to shrink. I mean, like people were saying as well, it's the worst one that they've put out. Like the first generation iPods they look all antiquated now. Like I'm sure the technology is going to change and improve, but it's just going to take a long time to get to where people want it to be. Yeah, well, that's what I mean. If you want to watch TV with your friends and family, you need a bunch of them. And then you're all sitting around wearing headsets. And getting into the whole like copyright thing, let's say you had two different headsets, you can't have just like one display that you're all looking at. Everyone that would have the headset would have to own the piece of content that you're looking at. You can't just be like, oh, let's watch this movie, I'm going to put it up here, and everyone puts on their headsets and just sits down and watches it like they would with the screen. Yeah, and think about how they're trying to prevent multiple people from sharing subscriptions. Let's all just sit down and sync our individual Netflix accounts that we each pay $15 a month for. Then we're going to watch a movie together. The guy in his Tesla with the headset. That cannot be real, that guy. That cannot be real. We need an anti-subscription movement. Yeah, I mean, just get Plex. Get Plex Media Server. We're going back to piracy, boys. Get in. Just wait for the technology where they turn the TV off if another person enters the room. Yeah. That'd be good too. Fun fact about piracy, never goes out of style. It's fun to think about like the early days of the internet, how it really was like kind of a Wild West kind of situation, right? It never totally went away, but like it's pretty cool that that's how a lot of us kind of started off. No joke, I'm making a go of it to get off subscriptions this year and make it a Plex server. Really, for me, Old Dutch, it's just like having a kid, I think, is hard because like he wants to be able to watch Netflix and Disney stuff, and there's no way I could get everything that's on there. I think I could go full hacker mode. I could go full hacker mode if it was just me that I was thinking of. I served many good years afore the mast of the SS Pirate Bay. What's even more interesting are the hacking scenes for video games, and the motivation many times is less about money and more for bragging rights. Well, the whole thing with like shareware as well, and free software. It's kind of like inherently anti-capitalistic, right? There's something kind of cool about that. Of course, that's why it's all being turned into the subscription model. Anyway, yeah, you know what? I would probably like to play with one of those headsets, but the idea that like it would be this thing that I'd be wearing all the time, I think is nonsense. Like, oh, you don't need, and like just doing work as well. People are like, look, you don't even need a laptop screen. I got this display and this display, and then they have this virtual keyboard like. Blip, 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 blip. I don't know, just. This is just one of those cases where I think it's going to be a long time before the whole analog experience is going to be surpassed in any way by that. It's just Facebook trying to commodify an exponential growth. Yeah, totally. And like Zuckerberg is someone that I think like he sees that technology is going to be the future, and like I don't know. I feel like maybe there's a possibility that some aspects of it will, but it's way out. I think it's way out. I'm very new to following the NBA. Is that Raps trade good? Why are they sending a first rounder if they're in rebuild mode? Well, the first round pick it's a late first round pick, which they have a few of. They might be anticipating getting some more first round picks back. It's still not even 3 p.m., so they still might be engaging in some significant trades, possibly. So they might be planning on getting more back. The pick that they have still is the one that's top 6 protected. So if they do finish with a really bad record, they still might be able to pick in the top 6. So I don't know. Old Dutch. I don't know what to tell you. I don't think they're done making moves. Is my basic answer. They might be like getting Olynyk in the first place might be a sign that they might be trading Pirtle. Maybe they want a backup center. I don't know. Apple goggles are dead in the water without VR porn. Porn is one of the reasons Blu-ray beat HD DVD. Wasn't porn always the arbiter of like the successful technologies like Betamax and everything as well? Yeah, that's another thing we were talking about with Liv the other day. I mean, not that I know about this. I think the gooning community is, from what I understand, the gooning community has given a thumbs down to the experience. Never heard of porn in my life, nor have I ever been horny. So, just in general. So, personally, I wouldn't know about that. Yeah, maybe put me on an airplane and give me like, yeah, let me look at a 60, 70-inch screen of Avatar: The Way of Water or something, and have a projection of like some beautiful, serene meadow around me or something like that. Maybe that's a situation where I might think those goggles would be neat if I didn't have to interact with anyone. Any situation where you're interacting with people, though, I think is a disaster. And like we were talking about when it dropped, people like cooking with your big headset on. Oh, look, I got a timer over this pot of boiling noodles, and I got a timer over this thing. It's like, you're like adding so many unnecessary steps into something that has technology that has existed for many, many years that does not have any problem with it. You know? Like, I don't need to look at 5 timers. And like, people look on my fridge, there's like a grocery list. It's just like, you know what? You can just write it down on a piece of paper. Why is it better? Why is it better to have a digital grocery list when you can just write it down on a piece of paper that you hold in your hand and you just put it in your pocket? I don't know. Is that literally everything has an upside and a downside? Are you feeling the VR goggles, Lodan? Are you more bullish on this? I can never afford that shit. Well, no, me neither. The thing is, the cell phone killed the alarm clock, calculator, and timer industry. Tech pros just have this fantasy about being the next iPhone. Yeah, and like Orb Lady as well, like this like need on the part of Apple and specifically to be like, we need to like invent a new product. We need a new and exciting tech product. You know? They feel this like pressure to do that because they have this track record. I like the excitement of having no list. I'm often shopping by pure vibes. Actually, it actually is not a good idea because often I need stuff and then I forget it. If I really, really, really need something, I'll write it down. Also, with having a kid and streaming, you might need to regress a little and teach kids how to be patient while the torrent is downloading. Yeah, that's true. And you can be like, it's like we're hacking. We're doing this fun, cool,
you're gonna have good old
subversive thing.
To talk you through all this.
Way too cumbersome for gooning, if you ask me.
This comes up just so much, doesn't it? Max, thank you for the 20 months of Prime. So much gooning conversation over the last couple of weeks here. Maybe I can get sponsored by Mac Vision Pro. Imagine if I just showed up one day and because I got one for free and I was like, you plebeians, and I was making fun of you. I'm over here pinching and tapping. At the end of the day, all the new tech stuff is just bread and circus shit. Yeah, like Sean was saying, Lioness, it's like, it's not like this is being pitched to like meaningfully help like disabled people or like to fill some gap that's not there or to like help anybody or do anything differently. It's purely just like, look, there's this new like $4,000 toy that's going to make your life have meaning. And you're gonna get this thing and it's going to make you feel this, it's going to scratch this itch that you didn't know you had until that feeling goes away. It's going to last a couple of days and then that feeling's going to go away. And then you're going to look at the Apple Vision Pro headset and you're collecting dust on your desk. I haven't used this in a couple of weeks. Is this even charged? Where's the charger for this thing? And that feeling of feeling special dissipates and it's like, I need to get something else. I need some new thing. I do know that Arsenal fans are gooners. I do know that. I'm still unhappy, even with this VR headset. Maybe immigrants are to blame. That's right. And that's right, that's how it starts. They'll come out with the Apple headset too. There's a slightly lighter weight and maybe some OS upgrades and some new features. Love that you're doing the time theft. Love the time theft crew. Kev. And the old one stops working. Yeah, and as well, it's like you're talking about music or whatever. You walk into a room, and that's the thing people say. I got my music on this window here. Where it's like, but only you can hear that, though. Like, what's the idea that you walk into like a communal space with other people and you're listening to the same music or you're watching the same thing on a screen, and it's just encouraging people to retreat into these like self-induced prisons, virtual prisons. I heard Joe Brandon's going to be giving Apple Visions to everyone coming across the border. I think that's true, actually. That's true. He goes down there to hand them out personally. Here you go, Mac. Hands out the Apple Vision Pros to everyone getting across. Waves them through. Here's your free house. Here's your free home. With the Apple Vision Pro inside for you. Well, you with the VR home, who needs shelter? Well, that's the really dystopian idea about these kind of headsets and living in this kind of like virtual world as well, is like the worse that things get with your housing situation, the worse that things get with the climate. Our city's just following into disrepair, you know, and we're all living in squalor. And then we just then we're in the Matrix. Then we just go and plug in there. We don't need to have a livable climate. I don't need to have I can live in a little cardboard box. But they have to come through illegally, though. None of those that pass by actual crossings. Absolutely, yes. Only for the illegal immigrants. Free Apple Vision Pro. It's like every episode of Black Mirror in one, yeah. What if you were trapped in your phone, innit? And it all started with losing $20 betting on basketball. I actually have been trying to install one of these betting apps and it just won't even let me do it. There's like specific ones in whatever province you're in. I finally figured out the one that I can actually use in Quebec, and I tried to put like $20 on it. And it didn't let me. And I'm like, maybe the universe is trying to send me a message here. The sky is full of wildfire smoke and nuclear fallout ash, but with your MetaQuest Apple VR, it's clear skies. That's right. Exactly. We are kind of headed there, aren't we? A little bit. The app is like, not you, Rob. That's a mistake I'm not going to let you make. It's really doing me a solid. gas mask attachment sold separately. I mean, did anyone see the combination of there's those like there's like that headset with like the air purifier mask, and people were wearing the Apple Vision Pro and that, and it's just like, oh boy, that makes me feel pretty bad. Orb Lady, I'm just talking about it. I'm just talking about a little $20. I'm just talking about $20. A few little measly $20 bets. I'm not going to turn into Robert Patrick on The Sopranos. Your kid needs that. But the thing is, if I had $40 instead of $20, then that's even better. That's the genius of it. That's why this is something I need to explore. The clean oxygen bars in India, let's get those, but your fee includes 15 minutes of virtual meadow and forest. We're so headed there. I think this is the depressing thing, is that we're actually are headed towards that future. I don't know. Doesn't make me feel good. Well, we're already here, but we're going to be there even more. Time to kill all carbon scrubbers and bring back the 1890s. We might as well. You know, we might as well just do it at this point. We're already just going back to the Gilded Age. Why pretend anymore? Well, what else are we talking about today, folks? Is just this it? Is this we're just doing this? The Gilded Age 2, this time with shittier atmosphere and melted icebergs. I'm working on a killer laudanum recipe. I would love to start getting my hands on that. Like, at least let's bring that back. You know, if we're bringing back everything else with the Gilded Age on top of the dying planet as well, at least let us get laudanum and cocaine at the pharmacy. You know? Just give us this. Just give us this, okay? Let me go purchase cocaine at the pharmacy. Please. Absolutely, Sean. And in the same way that I could place a simple $20 sports bet, I could have a simple little pick-me-up. Easy. Bring back cocaine in my Diet Coke. It really would be the perfect beverage like that, I think. If it had just a small amount of cocaine in there. That'd be fantastic. You can just add Coke, but I'm 40 years old. I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to get that stuff. I don't know how to get drugs anymore. I'm not cool. If so, you could give me a briefcase full of money and be like, hey, go exchange all this money for cocaine, and I would not be able to do it. I'd be like, I'm sorry, I can't do this. How would I even go about that? Just go asking people in the street or something? You gotta know a guy, I guess so. I don't know, but I don't know guys. I just know you, chat. It's true, if weed wasn't even legal, I don't even know how I'd get that anymore. Or to simply make your own. No problem. I am going to have some Diet Coke now, though. I incepted myself here. Timaeus, you don't need an intervention. It's fine. It's like 99% water. It's good for you. Just go down to the border. Brandon's trading drugs for American citizenship.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Diego, thank you very much for another gifted sub. Oh, God, that's good. Man. You know, sometimes these corporate conglomerates that sell us poison really do get it right. They really do. I'll still keep drinking that garbage. The steak is delicious. I don't want to be a Twitch streamer. Maybe somebody important. Like a low level Twitch streamer. All right. Oh. I don't know, folks. You know what? I made a really yummy chicken sandwich. Talk about little treats that keep us happy in the Matrix. I had like an old rotisserie chicken that I got from the grocery store. I got it yesterday, I guess. Heated some of that chicken up just to put in a sandwich. I got these like soft buns. And I didn't have any pickles. I like to put some pickles on there, but I put some kimchi because I wanted to get a little bit of that texture, a little bit of that vibe, and it was nice. It was like rotisserie chicken, mayo sriracha, American cheese, and a little bit of kimchi on there, and it was really good. It was really yummy. I don't have any QP mayo right now, unfortunately. I just have the regular stuff. Kimchi makes any meal better. I really do have it with almost everything now. I just get big tubs of it, and pretty much every meal that I make, I'm putting a little bit of that in there somewhere on the side or whatever. Before we move on, folks, while we're talking about the weird virtual escapes from our rapidly collapsing ecosystem and decaying social fabric and nonstop stream of horrifying imagery, did you know that the only way that I'm able to do this program that you're watching right now, did you know that the only way I'm able to do that each and every day is if people subscribe to the show? So if you can, as you know, in exchange for me being able to sit here and do this show, which many of you seem to enjoy, for whatever reason, don't ask me to explain it. The community, the programming, the laughs, the whatever else, the insightful, subversive commentary, whenever that happens, it's kind of few and far between. But as you know, the only way that it's able to continue is if the little number at the bottom of the screen goes up. That's just the deal. That's my fucked up dystopian bargain that I've made, where I can do this program and I can talk about all the things that we talk about on here, and I can provide a countervailing narrative to the news of the day, corporate media, mainstream media, and I'm able to do that as long as this little number at the bottom of the screen goes up. Every single day. It must go up every single day. So if you can, please subscribe to TRRS. Help subscribe. Support the work that I do on here.
Count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Hello fellow members of this not cult but a friendship triangle TRRS Che.
That's right, Tekiero. Thank you for 17 months tier 1. Hello to you. If you can, subscribe, or you can gift subscriptions if you want to. As we know, gifts of 5 or 10 or even sometimes occasionally 20 subscriptions trigger some very cool and fun alerts. I must make the little number go up every single day. So if you can, please help me do that. Maybe that's just me. If you didn't reset it, you wouldn't have to do this. So you know how painful it is sometimes, Max? Especially on those days that are like great days. Sometimes it's just people come through.
You've just become an elite member of the Friendship Triangle.
Thank you, Subscription Steve, for 5 gifted subs. Very kind of you, Subscription Steve.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
I love it. Thank you. And thank you, Crystal, as well, for the 2 gifted subs. That's very kind of you. I've got to do it, folks. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Believe me.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk
Kijiji, thank you for gifting a sub to Terrence Ross, fellow professional streamer, Terrence Ross.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
And Joe, thank you for the gifted sub as well. I appreciate that, Joe. Yeah, no, Max, though, like on those days when I do really well, I get up, I meet the goal, or maybe go a bit beyond, it gets into like the karaoke territory. I feel really good about myself. It's like, wow, it's like this was great. And then at the more, like, I have to start the next stream, and it's just so painful to click the little button to make it go back down to 0. I'm like, oh, why can't it just stay like this? Why can't it just stay? But I have to do it every single day, and it's so painful.
Good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Max, thank you very much for the 2 gifted subs as well. Thank you, Max. Stop saying sorry, you damn Canadian. It's your job. And I know that's true, Red Wizard. I know that's true. It's just weird to me. It's weird to me. I know it's definitely the part of doing this that I least enjoy. Is taking the time out of these conversations to try and make people help me make this little number turn into the good number. You know? You'd think one of these like massive corporations that I'm always shilling for would just pay me to do it. I can't do that though, Sean. I can't crack the whip like that. I just don't. I can't do it. It's just not me. Why don't they? It's a great question, Risk Inverse. I mean, the Coca-Cola Corporation could pay me the annual amount of money that I make from doing this stream and not even miss it. They wouldn't even miss it. It would be like a drop in the bucket of their massive profits. And I'm driving sales. I'm talking about their products.
Through all this.
You know, that's a good investment. Yeah, that could be a rounding error. That would be a tax write-off. Lamport, thanks for the 12 months of Prime. One entire year. One entire year from Lamport. You'd think a massive corporation that leftists try to undermine daily would sponsor you. I know. It's absurd. Ridiculous. There we go. I should be demanding back pay. I agree.
Use the computer to mark up the size of the account.
Hey Rob, thanks for not accepting money from the Fuji Apple lobby. Big Apple has gone too far.
Thank you, Joe. And listen, there's a little something called integrity. You try a Laogan Mod deal. That would be great as well. That would be because like a lot of this, when I sponsor these, I talk about these products, I do genuinely enjoy it, but I lay it on a little thick because it's like ironic. Laogan Ma would be 100% sincere though. I would be like John Cena on there. Fully sincere. Once Rob touches some of that Coca-Cola money, this socialism shit is over. It would be really funny if I became like corporate Rob, if I did a corporate Rob heel turn, wearing the suit. Or talking about Chappelle's show earlier, like the woman on Chappelle's show. Hide the money, y'all. There's poor people around. I was saying that about you guys. That'd be so mean. Imagine. Start showing up on CBC, put the Ukraine flag in the bio, the Israel flag. Supporting Canadian foreign policy, talking about the Michaels. 40 seconds left, folks. Can we get through level 3 of this hype train? 30 seconds left. Another 2 to 3 gifted subs would do it. Would get us to the next level of this hype train. Start quote tweeting Jesse Brummer to defend him, you know. I found an Asian supermarket near me. I haven't gone there yet, but I wonder if they have Laogan Ma. Oh, they certainly do. Absolutely, Red Wizard. Certainly.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Doc, not so strange. Thanks for the gifted sub. Don't worry about it. It's okay. I really appreciate the gifted sub. Thank you. Coca-Cola money got me acting up. No, fortunately for you folks, fortunately for you, I will never go anywhere. I will never sell it because that's not an option. Because I've just said too much wild shit to ever get an actual job anywhere. especially in media. The only way I'm ever having a job in media is if I continue to grow this into like a real job. I mean, it's a real job now, but it kind of needs to be more of a real job. That's the only way that that's happening. Don't worry. Even if I was trying to sell out, even if I was like, please, CBC, I'll change all my beliefs. They'd be like, no, we don't want anything to do with you. Nothing wrong with trying to change the entire world's perception of society. Yeah, well, it's a living. Have you ever been on CBC? No, but I think I should be. I think I should be invited onto CBC to talk about various issues. I've got a larger social media platform than most journalists that appear on CBC. I've got a lot of credibility in speaking about and thinking about and writing about all these issues. I've spent the last 5-6 years of my life talking about politics, political issues, writing. You would think eventually maybe I would be included in some of these segments. The CBC wouldn't know how to deal with your truth. Well, that's the problem. They're not interested in having anyone talking about my perspective on there. I think I should probably find some kind of video content to put on now. Start new gooning session. Or just regular session. Start new session. Want a video of a U.S. candidate with a mini flamethrower? I saw the book burning thing. In the near distant future, TRRS Media Group will own most local news stations. That'd be so sick. That'd be so cool. It's fun. Like, this was always like the aesthetic of this show, though. That's why it's all the weird static and distorted stuff. That was kind of like the idea of it, though. That it's like this pirate broadcast. Transmitting the subversive messages in the dystopian decaying reality. UHF meets Pump Up the Volume, but in the Twilight Zone. Yeah, exactly. Let's just look at a few things. I think we're gonna pivot to talking about Palestine. I really just wanted to look at this empty-headed dumb fuck, genocidal piece of shit. I don't like fucking. I don't understand how people like Anthony Blinken are able to do this. You look like Ted from 60 Seconds. Okay? I don't know who that is. I don't know what that is. I don't understand these people. We can do Fetterman next. But like this tone of concern while they're helping Israel commit this ongoing genocidal mass murder campaign, while they're helping them do it, while they're cutting funding to UNRWA, and they're there in Israel, while Netanyahu announces that they're rejecting any possible peace deal, and he puts on the crocodile tears, and they're talking like they care. It's the tension between what the Biden administration is doing and what they're saying is making me feel completely insane. The hand-wringing and the moralizing and the projection of concern, the faux concern, the performance of concern and angst. Like, I genuinely don't understand how you could do this. Jay, this MF just said data image JPEG base 64 9J or AAQSKZJRGABAQAAAQABAAD. I did the whole thing. He's one of the aliens from They Live. Yeah, absolutely. I think Blinken is just buying Israel time. He has no intentions of helping. I just find it so fucking disturbing how these people talk about the violence that they're directly contributing to. They're directly causing it. They just cut funding to UNRWA, and now he's talking about how people need humanitarian aid. Maximizing civilian protection and humanitarian aid when you're sending them bombs that they're using to kill civilians and cutting humanitarian aid. Like, what the hell is that? That is insane.
We also discussed the imperative of maximizing civilian protection and humanitarian aid to address the ongoing suffering of Palestinian civilians in Gaza. Nearly 2 million people have been displaced from their homes. Hundreds of thousands are experiencing acute hunger. Most have lost someone that they love. And day after day, more people are killed.
17 billion in aid to Israel didn't pass yet, but blows my mind how much they're giving. It'll make its way there. It'll make its way there. But you can set your watch to it.
On all of my previous visits here, and pretty much every day in between, we have pressed Israel in concrete ways.
What concrete
To
ways?
strengthen civilian protection, to get more assistance to those who need it. And over the past 4 months, Israel has taken important steps to do just that, starting the flow of aid, doubling it during the first pause for hostage releases, opening the north and south corridors in Gaza so that people could move out of immediate harm's way through these corridors
And never be allowed to come
4
back.
hours pause every day, 3 hours notice. And yet, as I said to the Prime Minister and to other Israeli officials today, the daily toll that its military operations continue to take on innocent civilians remains too high.
This was yesterday, this press conference. Yeah, but Brandon said he's an asshole, so there you go. Like, these people are sick. Like, you have to be sick. You're a sociopath. You're a fucking psycho to act like that. Like, again, just the title of this video, maximizing civilian protection and humanitarian aid, as we give them the bombs that they're using to drop on little Palestinian kids, and we're cutting funding to the largest organization, the only organization that's anywhere near close to being set up to actually deliver humanitarian aid to people. We just cut they just lost like 75% of their funding without seeing any evidence for any of these claims that Israel's made about UNRWA, by the way. They haven't even seen the evidence. They just take what Israel says as being truth without investigating it. Like, you have to be a sick person. You're a sick person to do this. And like I've said before, I would almost rather someone just say, like, we're violent, genocidal sociopaths. Like, just say it. Just say you worship violence and death and you drink blood. You know? I would have more respect for someone, not a lot of respect, because I think that's abhorrent and disgusting. You know, I wouldn't like the people that were doing that, but at least they would be honest about what their intentions are. it's like you're shooting children with one hand and then on the other hand talking to a TV camera about like how sad you are about all the children that are being killed. Like it is absolutely sickening. And then there's this fucking guy too.
Demanding for a ceasefire. That is protesting or demanding for a ceasefire. Let's be honest here. Why aren't you protesting to bring them all home right now? Why aren't you demanding that Hamas surrenders as well too? Bring all of these people back home now. And
Israel's killing them.
And stop pretending that this is some kind of equivalence here now. This is like, bring them back. And that is
fucking moron. This man is a moron. Put on a dang suit, jackass. You look like shit, sir. What are the dog tags? Why are you wearing dog tags? And like we've pointed out on this show, there was a deal to get every hostage back on October 8th and October 9th and October 10th and every day since then. The entire purpose of taking those hostages in the first place was to get Palestinians out of prison. Palestinian hostages. Like we've talked about. Many whom were little kids. They were taken prisoner when they were little kids. Many who have never been charged with a crime. Significantly more. Man, this guy. I respect someone with less than 5 dog tags. I know, it's not even taking this seriously. Just these people in the U.S. government, and these are Democrats that are leading this as well. Like, these are Democrats, these are liberals that are leading this. And some of his own colleagues are asking for the ceasefire. It's not just these like random activists. He has dog tags because he joined the IDF cum troopers. Okay. You might as well at this point. Like we talked yesterday about the Selena Robinson situation, right? And the message outside her office that said Zionism equals Nazism. And people are talking about like, oh, these hateful messages. That's just when you start comparing Israel or Zionism to Nazism, wow, that's so hateful. It's so anti-Semitic. Let's just read this paragraph right here. It's from, and I can link this whole piece. It's from London Review of Books, a long read called Rubble from Bone, which meticulously documents what the IDF has been doing. Yeah. Let's just look at this paragraph. Palestinian men and boys between the ages of 12 and 70 are stripped, cuffed, blindfolded, and then loaded onto the backs of trucks to be taken for interrogation. Excuse me. Some have numbers written on their arms. Hundreds detained in Gaza have been transported to the desert prison of Ketziat, near the border with Egypt. Others have probably been taken to nearby military bases. Some men who were taken prisoner in Beit Lahia were stripped and transported to fenced-off camps, where for days they were tied up, beaten, and tortured. Others have disappeared. The IDF has subsequently said that between 85 and 90% of these detainees were civilians. Israeli forces have repeatedly raided UN schools and detained any men found inside. The Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights documented an incident on 19th December when the Israeli army surrounded and then entered a building in the Ramal neighborhood of Gaza City. The IDF allegedly separated the men from the women and children and then shot and killed at least 11 of the men, mostly aged in their late 20s and early 30s, in front of their family members. And these people are complaining and acting like they're the victims themselves of the Holocaust when this gets equated with Nazism. And people like John Fetterman are just completely supporting this. He doesn't even do the performative hand-wringing. Why are all these people calling for a ceasefire? Why don't you call for Hamas to surrender? And this is what Anthony Blinken and Joe Biden fully support. To the hilt. It's absolutely sickening. They never talk about what Hamas surrendering would mean. No, or they say, well, what? You find a way to defeat Hamas. Guess what? You can't defeat Hamas as long as there's an apartheid situation, as long as there's an occupation. As we've talked about many times, Hamas could surrender entirely tomorrow, and 6 months from now, there would be another extremist group, another group that would be the new Hamas. And it would just go on and on and on and on. There's always going to be resistance, including violent resistance, as long as there's an occupation, as long as there's this racist apartheid regime in place. And also in the case of Fetterman, no one can do, like, there's no elected officials that are here supporting Hamas. We don't send Hamas billions of dollars in weapons every year. There's nothing to protest. Why don't you go protest Hamas? Like, what? How? Where? Pure insanity. Anyway, here's breakthrough news.
We need a new system. We need a new society. We need to demand that which may have sounded impossible even a few weeks ago, but is not only realizable, but an imperative necessity.
Let me go to my local Hamas super PAC and give them a piece of my mind.
As negotiations over the war in Gaza continue, Hamas delivered a three-stage proposal for a permanent ceasefire. Benjamin Netanyahu has just gone on television to announce that Israel rejects this proposal and is planning to defeat Hamas militarily. Welcome to the Socialist Program. I'm your host, Brian Becker. Today we're talking with Mohammed Nabulsi. He's an organizer with the Palestinian Youth Movement. He's also an attorney based in Houston, Texas. And we're speaking with Leanne Fulhan, a popular educator, organizer, the education director at the People's Forum, and an editor at 1804 Books. Leanne and Mohammed, welcome back.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us.
You know, one of the problems with doing our show today is that everything is changing so dramatically. Yesterday, we heard or had revealed the proposed text, presumably a verbatim text of a Hamas ceasefire proposal, a three-stage proposal. Netanyahu just went on TV and said, no ceasefire, even though millions of people around the world, everywhere, maybe tens of millions, hundreds of millions of people are demanding a ceasefire. Netanyahu just went on TV, Mohammed, and said, no, we're going to defeat Hamas, seemingly rejecting the proposal. Anyway, what's your take, Mohammed?
I think the announcement from Netanyahu is largely posturing to create an illusion that they are steadfast in their campaign. I think ultimately they're going to come back to the negotiating table with some counter or provide the mediators themselves with a framework for what they would be willing to do, because ultimately they participated in the Paris meetings to determine the broader framework. What Hamas did was counter it in order to concretize aspects of it. And so what we know is the Israelis already agreed to a broader framework regarding negotiations. If they were on the verge of absolute victory, they wouldn't be at the table. They wouldn't be attempting to negotiate an actual ceasefire, whether temporary or permanent. They also wouldn't be discussing a hostage deal that involves the release of prisoners. Because if they're able to defeat Hamas within weeks or months, as they've indicated, then they don't need to negotiate. They can just do so and establish the terms of their victory on the Palestinian people and on Hamas.
All right, let's talk, Leanne, about what the Hamas counter proposal or proposal was. We have a slide, I think, that we can bring up that shows the three stages of what Hamas is proposing. But you go over the terms of it as we understand it, and there people can look at the slide themselves. Go ahead.
Well, great. So what Mohammed laid out is true. This is a response to the general framework that was hashed out in Paris between Israel, Qatar, Egypt, and the United States, and concretizes a very vague proposal that was developed in the Paris negotiations, or the discussions rather. And what they're doing is specifying what would happen in the three phases. So in phase one, they would do one round of exchange for Israeli hostages and Palestinian prisoners. The hostages that they would release would focus on women.
No, I know I'm muted. But also, like in that, I watched that Anthony Blinken clip where he's talking about, more things need to change, where so many people are losing their lives, being displaced. We need to get humanitarian aid. This was when they were announcing that the peace process would not be continuing, at the same time that he's hand-wringing about that and saying there were several non-starters in the Hamas proposal. There were several non-starters. Well, here's the proposal, so we can determine for ourselves what these so-called non-starters are.
Women, children, those under the age of 19, not military personnel, elderly, and sick. In exchange for a number of prisoners, there's further details in what was published by Al-Akhbar, the text of the Hamas proposal, that says in this first phase they would focus on releasing 1,500 Palestinian prisoners. 500 would be appointed or nominated by Hamas, and they would be those who have longer or life-term sentences and are sitting in Israeli prisons. It also would include a temporary cessation of operations. That means stopping military incursions, stopping aerial reconnaissance, putting the Israeli forces far outside, the text says, populated areas in the entire Gaza Strip, and to be along the dividing line. This is what they say is necessary for the actual exchange to occur. And then also increasing aid and increasing the quantities of aid that is coming into the Gaza territory, starting the reconstruction of hospitals, and politically starting these indirect discussions or negotiations to sort of solidify the requirements for a more permanent ceasefire. In the second phase, the next 45 days, their proposal is those discussions on what would need to continue the cessation of mutual military operations needs to be completed. Otherwise, the second phase cannot occur. And in the second phase, there would be another round of exchange of hostages for Palestinian prisoners. In this round, it would be male detainees, both civilians and conscripts. And then the numbers for Palestinian prisoners are still a bit vague in the text that was released here. If that occurs, the third stage then moves into an exchange of bodies and remains on both sides, and a continuation of the humanitarian aid and reconstruction efforts. There is, in the annex, there is also, for the first phase, proposal that
ending the war,
in addition
it's
to
number
the
one
exchange,
non-starter.
they would also need to guarantee that the conditions of prisoners in the Israeli occupation prisons would need to be improved. And then also there would be some sort of legal guarantee that those who are released cannot be rearrested on the same charges. There's also a proposal in the annex, again, these things still need to be concretized, that there would be an end to the incursions of Israeli settlers on the Al-Aqsa Mosque and restoring those conditions on the mosque. So that's a general framework that was proposed by Hamas. The difference is pretty stark, and I'm sure we can get into that.
Okay, Mohammed, I want to talk about the pressures that are on the Israeli side. And of course, when I say the Israeli side, I mean the U.S. Israeli side, because you can't really separate what Israel is doing without the full acknowledgement that all of it is with the consent of the United States government. The U.S. government has extreme capacity and authority and has chosen not to use it against the state of Israel as it carries out this genocide, which is, we're all witnessing in real time. But I want to talk about the pressures that the Israeli government faces, because in a way the Western media presents it is Israel has this enormous military supremacy, military superiority, a vast arsenal. It's funded, financed, armed by the biggest military power in the world. That would, of course, be the United States. But there's regional pressures, and then there's the pressures, and we're going to talk about what's going on regionally, but I want to start with Palestine itself. Ramadan is coming up in a few weeks. Let's just talk about what might happen inside of all of the areas occupied by the Zionist regime and what potential pressure that could bring on this ongoing struggle.
Yes, I think it's important to contextualize the actual conflict that exists within Israeli society and within the Israeli political class. What you have is a far-right Messianic religious Zionist wing, ultimately reflecting the most fascistic elements of Israeli society as a member of the governing coalition and as members of the actual war cabinet. And they have their own sort of narrow interests and aspirations vis-a-vis Palestinians and vis-a-vis Palestinian land. Specifically, the need to Judaize Jerusalem, to essentially displace Palestinians. I think that's shared across the political spectrum by Israelis, but specifically their ambition towards the Al-Aqsa compound, the desire to establish actual political and religious control over the Al-Aqsa compound. And this is shared mostly by the far-right elements, especially Ben Gvir. That, coupled with their aspirations towards the West Bank, towards the expansion of settlements, the creations of facts on the ground that allow them to control and maintain sovereignty over all of the West Bank in order to displace and dispossess Palestinians. And so this far-right coalition partner to Netanyahu is advancing its own strategy towards its interests. And this, in a way, butts up against both the US's desires for what the situation would look like in Palestine, which is a controlled, stable status quo that allows Israel to operate within the region at the behest of the US, with the US not having to focus resources, energy, and political capital towards quelling these fires that Ben Gvir and Smotrich regularly inflame. And so there's this pressure that exists on Netanyahu and his centrist partners, who also have tensions with this far-right element. And this backdrop of attempts at inflaming the situation in the West Bank to facilitate this dispossession is occurring through actual establishment of military and political control by this far-right element. They effectively are the wings of the government that are in control of the situation. Now, with Ramadan coming, Ramadan represents a boiling point historically. In 2021, during the unity uprisings that occurred, especially in relationship to Sheikh Jarrah, the transgressions against the Al-Aqsa Mosque and the worshippers, there's a chance in this current moment that those tensions are increased and reemerge, especially since Ben Gvir has attempted to visit the Al-Aqsa compound with hundreds, if not thousands, of settlers, and has indicated that he would be willing to do so. In fact, the US government has specifically leaked to both American and Israeli media their wariness and their fear around Ben-Gvir attempting something of this nature in March, with Ramadan coming. Now, the worst case scenario for the Israelis is the West Bank moves from a low stakes or low intensity military confrontation, as what we've seen now with raids and arrests and things of that nature, into a popular uprising that centers around Al-Aqsa Mosque, as what we saw in May of 2021. And that would also include Jerusalem specifically, where the proximity between Israeli police forces, Israeli society,
I've had it with that dude.
Palestinians is much shorter in distance than it would be in the West Banks, where settlements are in a way militarily safeguarded, unlike what happens in Jerusalem. So this is the backdrop. And so these deals, the negotiations that we're seeing, are butting up against the real possibility of escalations during Ramadan, and the need to arrive at a solution that prevents this uptick at the same time that they've dealt with the need to release hostages inside of Gaza.
All right, Leanne, Ramadan begins, I believe, on March 10th, so we're about a month away. And if Mohammed is right, what's going on with the war could lead to an amazing demonstration, eruption of resistance inside the West Bank. It would seem to me that that's a nightmare scenario for Joe Biden. I mean, the U.S. government is caught in a way. I mean, it's caught on the horns of a dilemma it created, which is a full embrace of Netanyahu as a person, as a leader, and at the same time, a full embrace of the Israeli genocidal campaign, such that not only is the U.S. reputation sort of in the gutter right now globally, but even at home, the Biden administration may very well lose its own re-election bid. Young people don't want to vote for Biden right now. They're mortified about the Holocaust, the genocide that's taking place. Arab American voters and Muslim voters who were decisive for Biden in 2020, they want to, quote, abandon Biden.
I mean, really the only reason I'm not just predicting a full Joe Biden Democratic Party wipeout is just because of how comically evil and inept conservatives are. They're just so fucking awful that they may very well not capitalize on all the unpopularity that Biden and the Democrats have. But either way, I think it's still a very likely outcome.
So Biden's interest is to end, and by the way, I don't know if either of you saw, the New York Times had a video yesterday about the more than 1,000 black preachers who have signed the letter demanding a ceasefire. That video in the New York Times, I've never seen anything like it. In fact, not only does it have the voice of the black clergy, but in the background are all of the demonstrations from the Shut It Down for Palestine coalition. Amazing coverage for a capitalist newspaper. A lot of pressure on Biden right now to end it, and yet so that's their interest right now, is to find a way out. But you have this fascistic element that Mohammed's talking about that seems to have Joe Biden in a corner. What do you think? I mean, is the Biden administration going to continue with this path, or is there behind the scenes, do you believe, additional pressure being placed on Netanyahu and that team?
I certainly do think there is some sort of pressure being placed on Netanyahu. What it amounts to is, I think, the question. Because what we've been seeing over the past couple of months,
the Kamala thing is just not going to happen if that's communist.
The kind of
it's over.
Corner that has been backed into by the discontent within its own population, as well as the isolation on the world stage. They haven't changed any of their actual actions that hold up and prop up this genocidal assault on the Palestinian people. They've not changed any of their military aid. They haven't put actual pressure on any international arena. They haven't used the political and economic weight that they have to actually impose.
They sanctioned like 3 settlers,
on the Israeli
though.
government, which they could do if they wanted to do. That would bring about a negotiated end to this stage right now. I mean, with the latest sanctions that Biden actually put on, a few very small gesture on sanctions towards Israeli settlers, these are symbolic, but they do cause panic within the Israeli media, trying to understand what it means, what the impacts would be. All these things are really small. I mean, Blinken has been saying also that they're encouraging their Israeli partners to use more precision to try to protect civilian lives. And despite all of these statements, the Israeli military is now moving its operations into Rafah, which has over 1.2 million displaced people crowded into a tiny area, which will only bring about more massive numbers of civilian deaths. Very difficult to understand after over 27,000 people have already been massacred by the Israeli forces with full U.S. backing. I mean, we've seen over the past couple of months the ways in which U.S. intelligence and U.S. media cleared the path for the legitimacy of this genocidal assault. So I think that the pressure that Biden is feeling, they wish that they could control these more right-wing elements, but they're not actually using the full weight of their force to be able to bring about what would be a negotiated end. The backing of the Israeli regime, the Israeli occupation, is still there and it's still intact. The Abandon Biden campaign is super interesting. I think it's very threatening to the Democratic establishment. There's a lot of discord and discontent within the ranks of the Democratic Party. I know that Biden is sending some of his aides now to Michigan, to Dearborn, Michigan, where the largest Arab American population resides, to try to hold some discussions. But the disillusion between the strongest bases of the Democratic Party is very serious and very real, and is going to be decisive, I think, in the upcoming elections. That doesn't mean that the Republicans are offering anything different. If anything, Trump is even more tied to full support for the Israeli occupation. So it's a very interesting situation, and mostly characterized by
we love
the
democracy.
US unwillingness to provide any real constraints on the Israelis.
The genocide guys are the feeling bad about it. Genocide guys are the enthusiastic genocide guys.
Took office in January 2017. The first country he visited was Saudi Arabia, and at the same time, Trump announced unilaterally that, in contrast to other U.S. presidents that were prudent or cautious, at least in terms of their language, that the U.S. would support moving the Israeli capital to Jerusalem. Now, let's talk about the role of Saudi Arabia. Again, very close to Trump, very, very close. And they have to be thinking at this point that Trump might, in fact, become reelected for a second term. So that would be, a year from now. That will have a big impact potentially on U.S. policy and on the allies. Saudi Arabia was about to normalize relations with the Israeli government right before October 7th. October 7th disrupted that. I want you to talk about, in terms of how impactful this was in terms of the Palestinian resistance calculations when the decision was taken to undertake this military initiative on October 7th. If the Saudis went along with normalizing relations and the other Arab regimes that function essentially as client states of U.S. imperialism continued to do the same, it felt to me like there was an effort to basically extinguish the Palestinian question once and for all. And then October 7th disrupted that. And then there was an announcement that the Saudis now would only normalize relations and recognize Israel on the basis of an irreversible guarantee that there would be the creation of a Palestinian state, an irreversible guarantee. And then in the last week, the language shifted. The language was softer. It was like the Saudis will consider normalization if there's a political commitment for a process towards normalization or something like that, some new vagary. And then yesterday, the Saudis issued a statement that appeared, at least, to have a stronger position, saying, no, we won't recognize Israel unless there is a guarantee of a long-term settlement, political solution to the Palestinian question. Anyway, let's talk about Saudi Arabia a little bit. I want to get your sense of where
I believe they even said
what,
at the 67 borders.
Yeah, so I
interestingly,
think
which is also
Arabia,
in line with China's position.
The government has competing strategies that are rooted in speculation and calculation on the role of the U.S. and Israel in the region, and its ability to actually organize a counterbalance or a coalition, what they would describe as a defensive coalition vis-a-vis Iran and other actors in the region. And so on the one hand, they may see that their future in terms of their interests, their ability to secure their rule within Saudi Arabia, their ability to control the region is tied to the US and Israel's presence and strength within the region. And they see this also at the same time that the US is discussing the need to pivot to Asia, to focus on China and Taiwan. And so there's fears there with the US relinquishing its dominance and control over the region, or reducing its dominance on the region, that Saudi becomes more vulnerable. Now, October 7th did a number of different things. Okay, first of all, it reminded the region that the Palestinians themselves are the ones who ultimately control the fate of the region in relationship to Israel. And this has been a historical condition that's waned in the recent past. So historically, the PLO, in moments of normalizations, maybe including in the 70s when Egypt was moving in the path towards normalizations, would engage in acts of resistance to effectively prevent any sort of deal manifesting itself, or to remind the actors that you may be able to secure peace with this or that state, but you won't be able to secure actual regional peace. It just means that you and another party won't fire at each other, but ultimately we control the future of this region and its stability. That, I think, was reinforced on October 7th in a way that was more dramatic and more impactful than any past action of resistance by Palestinians historically. That's one. The second thing is the actual regional axis, what is described as the axis of resistance. This force demonstrated its capacity to coordinate and participate in regional actions vis-a-vis the US and the Israeli plans for the Palestinians. And so now Saudi's in a position where it recognizes not only do the Palestinians control the regional stability in terms of their participation or their involvement in escalation or acts of resistance, but that there's a regional force that is also tied to it, that's willing to escalate and actually facilitate resistance regionally, and not just against Israel, but against the US's interest and presence in the region, which obviously, if you think about Saudi's ties to it, that means a threat to Saudi vis-a-vis the US, but also against Saudi, the UAE, Egypt, including through this blockade of the Red Sea that the Yemenis are actually executing, one that's requiring not sophisticated weaponry, commercially available arms and military equipment that no one can necessarily prevent them from achieving. And so they recognize now that the regional stability, and by stability, I mean the capacity of actors to actually engage in resistance to imperialism and colonialism, is tied to the fate of the Palestinian people. It's tied to the political fate of the Palestinian people. So I think Saudi is reading the region in this way and trying to understand their role in where they should sell their allegiance, or how they should sell their allegiance in a way. And that's not to speak of also the popular pressure that exists within the region, the vulnerability to the governing bodies of the different actors who are susceptible to coups, revolutions, mass uprising, instability, insurgencies, all that are tied to, in one way or another, resistance, slogans of resistance. Now, we know some of those actors are ultimately controlled through the material provision of weapons by the US potentially, especially some of the more reactionary. They are threats, and instability facilitates their growth, including through the US. And so, in a way, the Saudis are reading the situation and saying, we have to stake out a position that actually facilitates long-term stability for our own in the region, and that requires Palestinian political sovereignty and independence. And I want to note, it's not just that they've, that they've agreed or they've gone in the path of supporting the establishment of a Palestinian state, but specifically on 1967 borders in East Jerusalem and its capital. This would require the U.S. to completely reorient to Jerusalem. It would require them to effectively tell Israel to withdraw from a number of different areas. Settlements would have to be undone. All of these different things.
How many settlers? What's the number?
Political solution, but a specific.
Does anyone have that information? What's the number of settlers that would need to leave in order to make those 67 borders possible in this kind of hypothetical Palestinian state? It's in the hundreds of thousands, isn't it? Yeah. That's the whole thing that's why those settlements were illegal in the first place, because it made that peace process impossible, which was by design. It made the whole idea of a Palestinian state completely impossible, or one that's significantly diminished, that it's this weird cobweb of land still being occupied by these huge settlements with lots of people. And you can see why that's going to be a non-starter. That's just something Israel's just never going to agree to that. They will never agree to it. $700K, 10% of Israelis' population, according to Google. Yeah, it's just crazy. Like, that seems to be just the fundamental conflict. Like, it's just been made, peace has been made impossible. A two-state solution has been impossible for years. I don't know if that's a hurdle that's going to be possible to get over, no matter who is asking for it, whether it's China or Saudi Arabia or whoever. Yeah, you don't need to kick them out, but if they stay, yeah, you're going to be living in Palestine. So good luck to you. And like, many of them are there specifically to prevent that from happening.
One, and one that the Israelis would never accept, especially this coalition, this governing coalition, and one the U.S. will have difficulty trying to impose. If
1 in 10 settlers are official capital S settlers.
So
yeah, but don't call them settlers,
Saudis
though. It's like
have
mean.
staked out a position, I think, that reflects the seriousness.
It's mean and anti-Semitic to call them
settlers.
settlers. There's literally settlers.
Iran's power and the actual capacity of Israelis to actually defeat Palestinians militarily. They've done their calculation and they've tied their fate, whether rhetorically or in actuality, to a fate that sees a weakened or a stable but weakened Israel.
So interesting, Layan, because obviously the Saudi royal family has no genuine solidarity with the Palestinian people. I mean, it's a monarchy and a dependency on American imperialism, and as Mohammed is pointing out, it has vulnerabilities that are very real. So they're making these, hard calculations. We're not a fly on the wall. We don't know what they're really discussing, what the various options are. But as Mohammed is explaining it, these are real vulnerabilities. I mean, there's the other just recent history, the United States working with the Saudi military, providing it with surveillance and providing it with weapons, and actually having U.S. Special Operation Forces in Yemen providing bombing coordinates for the Saudi military in its long-term war against the people of Yemen, a war it lost. These are the kind of realities behind the scenes that have shaken everything up. So, people can get lost in what appears to be like a Byzantine sort of like so many different moving parts of Middle Eastern politics. But as Mohammed is explaining it, and I think it's so true, the bottom line, the anchor, is the Palestinian resistance. Because without the resistance, without what happened on October 7th,
I did see the Pakistani election. It's pretty incredible. Yeah, so far it looks like Imran Khan's party is going to win, despite all kinds of fuckery that was going on. There is ridiculous amounts of fuckery to prevent that outcome from happening. It seems like it's happening regardless.
These are the kind of realities behind the scenes that have shaken everything up. So, people can get lost in what appears to be like a Byzantine sort of like so many different moving parts of Middle Eastern politics. But as Mohammed is explaining it, and I think it's so true, the bottom line, the anchor, is the Palestinian resistance. Because without the resistance, without what happened on October 7th, none of these more nuanced and complicated calculations by the Saudi royal family or Egypt or certainly the United States would even come into play. It's only because of the resistance. And now we have a situation where, 100,000 people have either been killed or wounded so far in Gaza, 100,000. And the Israelis are saying, we're going to attack Rafah. We are attacking Rafah. I'm looking at the media right now, air attacks on Rafah. Let's just talk about what that means, because this is where all the Palestinians who left their homes, the homes that have already been destroyed or damaged, they're gathered there in the southern part of Gaza. And Netanyahu, with the support of Biden, is saying, yeah, we're gonna go for it now. It would seem to me that we're entering this critical stage if the war indeed continues, and it would bring the whole region to a boiling point. Because we're watching this. The whole world is watching this genocide in real time. The first time in human history that something like that can be observed by the people of the planet all at once. Anyway, go ahead. I want to get your thoughts.
Well, it's certainly the way you described it. It's really an escalation of an already impossible to comprehend scale of brutality on behalf of the Israeli occupation. They have forced the displacement of over 1 million Palestinians to the southernmost portion of the occupied Gaza Strip, and then now are saying that they're ready to make an incursion there, and they're actually carrying it out. And this is not the first time that they've bombed or invaded or attacked areas of Rafah. Earlier on, a couple months ago, when people were starting to try to gather in Rafah to evacuate to Egypt for temporary safety or to bring aid in through the Egyptian border, Israel would then bomb the border or sites along the border. So there's really nowhere to go, and mass starvation is on the rise. The conditions are completely unlivable. Over 90% of homes have been destroyed completely.
Insane.
Every single hospital has been damaged. Every single school has been damaged. And then right after the ICJ ruling that would hold Israel accountable on the international stage for carrying out an actual genocide, like you said, Brian, in real time, first time in history that this kind of judgment can be passed because it's actually visible as it's occurring and unfolding. Right after that ruling came out, Israel and the US and their allies basically pulled the aid for UNRWA, which was the only operation that was able to provide basic shelter or food. Again, even UNRWA schools have been targeted by the Israeli campaign. But cutting the funding of UNRWA is another way of enacting a genocide, not through military bombardment. So I think when we're talking about the conflict, it's actually really essential to think not just about military operations, but the siege on the occupied Gaza Strip, which isn't allowing any sort of food, water, medicine, fuel, anything that's necessary for maintaining civilian life. So it goes in complete contradiction of any of the gestures to the media that Blinken or the US would like to put out, saying that they are here trying to protect civilian life. They're trying to work towards a ceasefire. They're trying to work towards something that they call the day after. They're doing nothing to actually stop the ongoing massacre. And the invasion of Rafah is really frightening to see. And I think you're right in saying that it's something that will provoke the region and escalate the tensions in the region, because nobody is willing to see this happen. The cause of the Palestinian people and the resistance of the Palestinian people, even in these conditions, isn't yet broken. And Israel hasn't managed to maintain its military victory or to achieve any military victory. And they're continuing their strategy of exterminating the resistance by attacking all civilians and civilian infrastructure. So this is really unsustainable, not just militarily, but also in the arena of relations between states and the forces across the region. If it continues in this direction and that there is no cessation of the Israeli assault, it definitely
I hear what you're saying,
will provoke further escalation in other ways. So we'll have to wait and see, but it's really not looking like something positive.
The empire needs to be stopped,
Mohammed,
and there's no other way around it.
The U.S. tells the American people that they are the superpower. They have all of the.
Our society is run by genocidal monsters.
Because of ignorance, frankly. Not knowing the region, not knowing the history
That's
of
just
Palestine.
the reality.
One of the reasons we do this show, one of the reasons we're publishing books, is we're trying to overcome the sort of enforced ignorance that the U.S. mainstream media carries out with the people of the United States. So they don't really understand the situation.
They sure seem to need a lot of emergency cash from Uncle Joe for people in total control. Sure, yeah.
A lot of that's breaking down now because of the mass movement of the past 4 months. But, it's still a big tug of war, to put it mildly. But one thing that people need to know, people in the United States need to know, is that if the war widens and becomes a regional war, it's already a regional war in one level, but I mean a real major escalation into a regional war, the U.S. forces are very vulnerable. They're vulnerable in Iraq. They're vulnerable in Syria. The U.S., I think, would lose a regional war. I mean, the U.S. hasn't really won any war. I mean, they won the war in Grenada, a country that's, the size of, 1/4 of Washington, D.C. That was 1983. But if you look at Korea, Vietnam, Afghanistan, where the U.S. could not defeat the Taliban, a wider regional war means that a lot of U.S. service members will get killed. And in spite of the fact that the U.S. has great air and sea power, that alone won't win the war. You can drop bombs on Yemen. That's not going to defeat the Yemeni resistance. Anyway, I want to talk about the regional war possibility and your view on that. Is Netanyahu looking for a wider war, a regional war, and the U.S.,
That's
even
what
though
we've
it's
been
carrying out all these
speculating on. It
military
seems like
strikes,
it. That's their only
and
play left.
Undoubtedly being impactful and killing a lot of people.
That's their
It doesn't
only play
seem
left.
like the U.S. actually, through the medium of regional war, succeeds. Anyway, I want to get your.
That's why ISIS bombed Iran.
I agree completely. I don't think the U.S. succeeds through a regional war, and I think they have told the Israelis in no uncertain terms that they will be defeated in a regional war. That the Israelis themselves would lose horribly, and not just in a sense of a military defeat that ends in the establishment of a secondary state or a state for the Palestinians, but potentially the end of Israel itself. And that's just from the entry of the resistance in Lebanon. It doesn't even require or involve an understanding of the other actors in the regions and what they would do. Now, I want to talk real quickly about a couple of things in relationship to this. First, and this ties back to the conversation we just had about Saudi Arabia, a regional war that's inflamed or set aflame, rather, by the Palestinian struggle would, first of all, be a political disaster for the pro-US, pro-Israel actors in the region. Why? Because it would entail a war that requires them to effectively materially stand with the Israelis, militarily and politically, something that their populations would not welcome. And so this war would be waged by all of these different actors who have been previously vilified and demonized in sectarian terms, but that wouldn't work well enough for them in this context. Why? Because they would be the ones carrying the banner of the Palestinian struggle. Right now, the regional actors, who are mostly Shia Arab, are more popular amongst Sunnis, amongst the various ethnic groups in the region, amongst Palestinians than they've ever been before, especially the Yemenis. And so you couldn't imagine a situation where Saudi would stake its position on the side of genocide against fellow Arabs, against actors who are defending Palestinians. And so that would force them to decide, where do they really want to stand militarily? And that is the same in probably even more true for Jordan, whose most of its population is Palestinian. And so a regional war that enlists the forces of the region, whether in confrontations with the US or Israel, would require the Arab states to position themselves in a way that is either neutral or in alliance with the Palestinians. They could not side with the Israelis and the US. And we know historically, whether in the region or anywhere else, that revolutions and coups happen during wars or following wars. Those are usually the conditions that produce that. And I think the region is like the regional state actors are well aware of that dynamic, that their positions of authority are most vulnerable when there's instability, when there's war, when the masses of the region are mobilized towards service of a common enemy with a common vision and a strategy. That's when their rule is ultimately under threat the most. And so these dynamics, and as you mentioned, the vulnerability of U.S. installations in the region, their bases in Syria and Iraq, that are extremely vulnerable. They don't have air defense systems in the way that they do elsewhere. They're sitting ducks effectively, and these are reservists who are carrying out logistical campaigns beyond actual fighting. And they're dealing with forces that are not just, it's not a conventional war that would be waged in the same way that it was waged in Iraq. The Iraqi, if we look at the actual Iraqi invasion, where the U.S. was ultimately defeated, it wasn't defeated by the Iraqi state military. It was defeated by the Iraqi counterinsurgency and resistance. The forces across the region,
who were armed and trained by Iran, or partially,
have actually constituted themselves based off of this paradigm. They are resistance forces. They're not state actors. They're not vulnerable to the same pressures that state actors in the region, with the exception of Iran. But Iran is also not Iraq. It's much larger, much more sophisticated, has greater capabilities, are much better positioned to threaten U.S. forces in the region. I think the worst thing the U.S. would want is an actual direct confrontation with Iran, and that's why they've not struck Iran, despite the fact that they've claimed that they're responsible for the attacks on the U.S. Outside of Trump and the assassination of Soleimani. And so this reality, I think the U.S. is well aware of, the regional actors are well aware of, and Israel is well aware of. And so a regional war is not in their interest. Now, at the same time, I think the actors in the region understand that this is a long, protracted struggle, that it doesn't require necessarily a full-scale escalation, because it will be devastating for the region. Whether or not the region or the regional actors come out of it, it will be devastating. And so for the time being, I think there's a sort of strategic deterrence that's been established between the various forces, and they're watching Gaza very closely. And for Netanyahu, he has narrow interests that butt up against the U.S.'s regional and global interests. But at the end of the day, he's an opportunist, one that, regardless of his sort of interests, will, at the end of the day, think about things strategically, and the way that many opportunists do. The right wing, the Messianics that think God is on their side, that see themselves fulfilling some sort of biblical prophecy, they're not in charge. The opportunist is, and at the end of the day, his calculation is, how do I survive this? And a regional war isn't one of those paths for him.
Very interesting. Leanne, when we talk about countries, we say Israel thinks this, or the United States thinks this. But of course, within the entity, there are different struggles, there are different factions, different trends. Of course, the ruling class in general has fundamentally the same interests, which in the case of the U.S., for instance, the ruling class in the United States, regardless of what faction, they want to dominate the world, they want to dominate the world market, they want to maintain U.S. supremacy. But there's lots of fights, as we can see every day. Same in the case of Israel. As Mohammed is pointing out, the far right, the fascistic, messianic element is actually desiring provocation. They want the struggle to grow. They're willing to, even on Ramadan, they're willing to go for it. They think, they're fighting a holy war and they're going to win that war. They're filled with that sort of, I don't know, hubris and arrogance. But then there's other parts of the Israeli society that don't like Netanyahu. We're already in the streets against Netanyahu. They're not pro-Palestinian. They're not sympathetic to the Palestinians, but they have their own differences with Netanyahu, and they don't consider themselves to be part of that far-right, openly fascistic wing of Israeli society.
But they are, though.
And they care about the hostages. They want the Israeli hostages to come back. The only time any Israeli hostages have been freed was during a cessation of hostilities. You know, that during that temporary pause. The Israeli military
think about
has
the
not
Fetterman
freed the
quote.
hostages.
If you've been asking for a ceasefire, why don't you ask for the hostages to be returned? How the fuck do you think the hostages are going to get returned, John? You dumb piece of shit. You're asking for a ceasefire? Yeah, because when there's not a ceasefire, Israel shoots their own hostages. If you actually care about them, maybe you should be supporting a ceasefire. You empty-headed dumb fuck.
As a matter of fact, the Israeli military has killed the hostages. Remember when the people came out with the white flag, the Israeli hostages, they were just shot dead by the Israeli military, who, you know, obviously they have the rules of engagement are shoot first and ask questions later, or shoot first and never ask questions. That's why they killed their own hostages. But it would seem that within the Israeli body politic, Netanyahu's position will become more and more isolated, I would think. I want to get your opinion on this, especially if they now say no to a negotiated ceasefire that would result in the release of the hostages. It might take 90 days, but there'd be a path for them to come home. And instead, killing thousands of more Palestinian people who are gathered in refuge in Rafah is Netanyahu's solution. It would seem like that also brings Israeli political contradictions to the very top of the equation. Are they big enough? Are those contradictions big enough that they become a major factor in Netanyahu's calculations? Obviously, Netanyahu, as an opportunist, as Mohammed pointed out, his main goal is not to go to jail. I mean, number one. But anyway, I want to get your sense of what's going on inside of Israeli society.
Yes, well, there's definitely a major crisis unfolding inside of Israeli society. The hostages, the question of the hostages and how to address them, whether it's by freeing them or whether it's by digging down into this military campaign where the horizon is purely just...
When people holding white flags or targets, I'd say that's pretty genocidal. Yeah, I mean, it's like, what more else do people need to see? They're shooting their own people, their own hostages, when they're waving white flags. Or like that whole thing, they were dressed as Palestinian civilians, which just admits that people that are dressed as Palestinian civilians are targets to be murdered and sniped and assassinated and bombed.
Just to eradicate Hamas, I think is two different contradicting tendencies that are present within Israeli society. I think there's a lot of factors to consider. One, at the basis of it, the project of the Israeli state is one that is based on this idea that people have a refuge within the borders of Israel, that, you know, this is the kind of promise that they've enticed people with. And having this ongoing state of war is, on the one hand, for some sectors of Israeli society, mainly the settler movement, is encouraging, it's motivating, it feeds this kind of like we are engaged in a holy campaign to establish the Jewish homeland. On the other hand, there's a large part of the population that is there with expectations of a good quality of life that's comparable to places where they also have citizenship in Europe or the United States. A lot of people have left Israel. They've gone back to other countries, to Europe, to the U.S., to cities in the U.S., because this is their priority. They want to have conditions of life where they don't feel threatened. So there's major contradictions there. Like you said, none of the hostages have been released through any military campaign. It has only been released through negotiations and through a cessation of the military campaign, even though it was temporary, which means that in order to secure further release of hostages, there would need to be another sort of negotiated settlement, all of which requires some sort of path towards a political solution, which would then cause even more contradictions within Israeli society. If, for example, the proposal put on the gesture put on the table by the Saudis, saying that not only is it a Palestinian state, but it's a Palestinian state within 1967 borders with East Jerusalem as its capital, that would create almost civil uprising within Israeli society. It would require the relocation of large numbers of settlers who have made incursions far beyond the 1967 borders. It would require them to then control their own people and to use force, police and military force, against their own people who are still now to this day. Settlers are going into homes in East Jerusalem and kicking people out of their homes, kicking Palestinians out of their homes. It would require that the Israelis repress large elements of their own society. So the contradictions, I think, are quite volatile. On top of it, there's been huge economic prices that the Israelis have paid since October 7, because their entire society had to be turned now to engaging in this military assault. And most of the Israeli army are conscripts. Every single person in Israeli society has to engage in the military. Otherwise, you go to jail. And so it's put the Israeli economy in somewhat of a standstill, which is not going to be sustainable, again, especially for that part of the society that is expecting certain kinds of conditions for their quality of life. Netanyahu, on top of it, like Hamid said, is right now an opportunist. This is not the first time that he's engaged in a large-scale military assault to maintain his position in the government. Every time it looks like he's going to be threatened, he tries to create a new threat that is bigger than him, which is the Palestinian resistance, the Palestinian terrorists, as he would like to say. But he is really just backed into a corner right now because this round of assault has not only led to him not being able to achieve the victory that he laid out, but has also turned the tables in a way that seems somewhat irreversible. No longer is the question now, I mean, they have maintained their political base in the US, in Europe, across the world on the idea that Israel has to defend itself. And the past 4 months have shown and have broken that narrative to the extent where it's impossible. It's very much impossible for most of that political base to maintain that argument. It's very clearly not a campaign of defense. It's definitely a campaign of colonization, of ethnic cleansing, of genocide. It has now been established in international law. So the losses, the strategy here has many cracks. There's many fissures also that are very, we can go into detail, but between the military establishment and the political establishment, between the different political parties within the Israeli society. But the trend overall is that the contradictions are increasing. And this will definitely have an impact on the way that Netanyahu is able to move. And it certainly is impacting the White House's calculations.
All right, Mohammed, I'm gonna give you the last word, and with kind of a big question, I want to just frame it. The Israeli Zionist project created the Gaza Strip after cleansing, militarily driving out, using terror methods to drive Palestinians, hundreds of thousands of Palestinians, from their homes and villages. Syria took some of the refugees, and Jordan took some, and Egypt said no. So the Israeli Zionist project created
increasing contradictions, even heightening
of the land, 2%.
You say.
Called the Gaza Strip, and pushed the other refugees there, the ones that Egypt wouldn't take. So they created this entity called the Gaza Strip. I mean, Gaza existed as a city, but Gaza Strip was created by the ethnic cleansing. So the people who live there have been pushed out from other places. And then Order Number 40, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, of the Israeli military in 1948, demolished and destroyed all of those villages just on the other side of the wall that was breached on October 7th. So the Palestinians could actually, from the Gaza Strip, look over, not far, and see all the homes that had been either burned down or blown up. They were blown up if they were stone homes. So the Israelis actually destroyed this area. And then on October 7th, the resistance fighters came back into the area that the Israelis had destroyed intentionally through Order Number 40 in 1948. Then you go forward, 1967, the Israelis seized the West Bank. They seized the Golan Heights. They seized Gaza militarily in the 1967 war. And then in 1982, the war in Lebanon, and the PLO is driven from Beirut. And then, you can keep marching through this bloody history where one aggression after another. And here we are 75 years later, and the Palestinians, in spite of all of this, and not having like major countries in the region coming to their aid and assistance. In fact, Egypt signed the Camp David Accords in 1978, taking the largest Arab army out of the confrontation, which allowed the Israelis to invade Lebanon in 1982. When you think of this history, it looks like the Palestinians would have to be destroyed, that they would have to be erased, they would have to be driven out. And here we are, and Palestine is the center of the world struggle against imperialism and for independence and sovereignty and justice. It's not going to stop. I think it's really important for the American people to get it. There is no way for the Israeli Zionist project, with the support of the U.S., to actually win in the long term, because this resistance won't go. I mean, you can see it historically. It's not based on conjecture. You can see the history. And that's the major factor. And I think I want to say that and get your feedback on it as we end the show, because I think we have to think about the American people, the people in the United States, realizing this truth, which they don't know or haven't known until now, perhaps, and the role that the American people themselves can play by becoming a political factor in the calculations of imperialism, because imperialism can't win, and yet it continues the project of military domination. Again, the only solution is to have an actual democratic Palestine rather than an apartheid Palestine. I mean, that's where this is going to end up, from my point of view. Anyway, you get the last word.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're absolutely right. And I think that, as Layan was saying, and as has been said generally speaking throughout this segment, is the Israelis, the Zionist movement is creating the contradictions for their own destruction ultimately, right? Like the competing societal forces within Israeli society, the competing interests within the region, the U.S. as an empire, the way it's stretched itself out, the way it's overextended itself, its confrontation with different actors globally is creating the conditions for the dissolution of the Israeli state. And so specifically when it comes to the Palestinians, there's this, often you hear this from people who are at least, nominally on the pro-Palestine side of things, say, well, Israel cannot destroy Hamas because Hamas is an ideology, right? And here, there's some implication that Hamas is an ideology means that as an Islamic or Islamist body, that Palestinians subscribe to this ideology, and there's no way to root that out, right? Until you actually participate in a campaign of social re-education of the Palestinian population. The Israelis call it denazification and things of that nature. But what they fail to recognize, or what the Israelis themselves are attempting to cover is, first of all, even if you destroy Hamas organizationally, its reason for being will continue to exist, right? The conditions that birthed Hamas will continue to exist. The Israelis theoretically, or, put forward the proposition that they defeated the PLO in 1982 in Beirut, expelling them to Tunis. And then a couple of years later, they have one of the largest, most effective popular uprisings, a revolution on their hands, right? That allowed Palestinians to reconstitute themselves politically. So the social and cultural
images are
force
just crazy
that exists within Palestinian society, that is rooted in a commitment to resistance, to achieve liberation, dignity, basic human rights, a return to the land, is a permanent feature of Palestinian identity. And so the Palestinian people, no matter what organization that belongs to them is destroyed or weakened or reconstituted, will continue to carry that flame. And that flame cannot be put out militarily. It's not something, they're not going to relinquish their political claim for a free Palestine from the river to the sea, and whatever that would mean. And the recognition that this enemy that you're facing is seeking to liquidate you, not just as a political reality, not as a political force, but as an actual national identity on the land that is tied to your social and cultural foundation.
Jesus.
This recognition is not going to change on the part of Palestinians. And so because of that, Palestinians will continue to resist no matter what organization comes out of the situation. Whether Israel is able to destroy or liquidate Hamas's leadership, they've done that before. They've assassinated thousands upon thousands of Palestinian leaders. They've imprisoned thousands upon thousands of cadre right now in the prisons as we speak. That has not in any way changed. And in fact, if you study the specific history of Hamas as a political force in Palestine, they've liquidated or assassinated entire ranks of leadership. And these fighters that we see in Gaza, these leaders that we see in Gaza, were birthed out of the same conditions and are the sons and the grandchildren of the same people that were assassinated and liquidated, and in fact are much more sophisticated both politically and militarily than the prior generations. What Hamas has done in October 7th and throughout this campaign, facing a genocide, unlike any war waged against another people in recent history, what they've been able to do demonstrates that this attempt to destroy Palestinian resistance is futile. It would only allow Palestinians to reconstitute and actually accumulate experience and build a new path forward for actual liberation strategy.
All right, we're going to leave it there. In that sense, we want the war to end. The world wants the war to end. They want the ceasefire. But without justice, this will definitely not be the last battle. Mohammed, Layan, thank you so much.
Wonderful stuff as usual from Brian Becker and the Breakthrough News team. Please make sure you're subscribed to that content and supporting Breakthrough News, because they do really valuable work. So we want to have a little palate cleanser, Dr. Maggot.
زي ما انتم شايفين صار في زي تجمهر عفوي فلسطيني بيجمعوا فقط الوحدة الوطنية، وبفرقوا كمان العنف الاحتلالي. لازم اركض صراحة، مش بالمود اني اركض، بس انه مبدئيا اللي جمعنا قبل شوي اوكي fuck you colonizer cunt motherfucker ما ضربنيش.
This is a couple years ago. Okay. And Kijiji, that's right. Not only should you subscribe to that content, but please, if you can, also subscribe to this content. I do have to, actually, I'm just going to put goodbye because I'm so tired. I'm so tired. I do have to get going soon, folks. Not like right now, but in about 10 minutes, I gotta go. I gotta go pick up my kid from school.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
And thanks, Dr. Maggot, for the gifted sub. 200 gifted subs from Dr. Maggot. Thank you, Dr. Maggot. And only 14 to go. Only 14 subs to go. So if you've been enjoying tuning into this program, folks, if being part of this community, or I can barely even talk. Well, I got no time for a nap today, up the Reds. I'm picking up from school. I got swimming lessons later. Not me, for my son, but so I'm doing stuff until later tonight. But I do get a bit of fresh air outside. I walk for at least probably 20-30 minutes a day, but if you've been enjoying this program, folks, if you enjoy being part of the community, I should learn to swim too, maybe at some point. If you like being part of the community, if you want to support the show, please subscribe if you can. 14 subs to go to get to the goal. I really can't even talk. I'm like actually losing it. Only 3 generous chatters could do it. Only 3 generous chatters could support TRRS so it lives for another day. That's right, Sean. It's a high stakes. I'm raising the stakes. Well, I mean, that's why I meant 3 generous chatters, because it would be 3 5 sub gifters. That's why I said that. It's generous for the 1 sub gifters and the resubbers, of course, but 3 extremely generous. And yeah, Diego, you don't need to worry about me. I'm okay. I'm like a dad. I'm 40. I'm just like tired all the time. That's all. There's just no real way around that. Is this how Canadians make 3 with their fingers? I don't know if there's a specific way. That's how I do it. They're like the 3-pointer, the 3-point shot kind. You know? I don't know would it be this? Would that be the way that I would normally do it? Is it this? I wouldn't do this. I would never do this. I would never think to do this. I would maybe do this. But this is my main thing. Never do the Inglorious Bastards one. I can't remember which is the one that gets him busted. Anyway, folks, only just a handful. Whether it's 3, we don't need to split hairs on the number there. We don't need to split hairs on the numbers. But just a few generous chatters and subscribers.
You can count on me. You're gonna have good old Rob to
supporters.
Talk you through all this.
Thumb equals a-hole or right wing sign. But the thing is, I'm not doing like a circle. I'm not doing the circle. It's this. It's just this. Sunny Sola, thank you so much for the 3 gifted subs. Very, very kind of you, Sunny Sola. Thank you. Only 11 to go, folks. Only 11 subs to go. Can you believe it? Can you believe it? Can you believe it, folks? Only 11 to go.
You can count on me. You're gonna have
and now
good
only
old
10.
Rob to talk you through all this.
Warm, yellow goodness badge.
Effusive Stoic, thanks for 27 months. Thanks for 27 months, and now only 10 to go. Only 10 subs to go, folks. One absolute hero and legend could get this show across the finish line for the day. One absolute legendary heroic figure could do it. Or 10 individuals as well. That would be totally fine with me as well. Ah. And we got Burgles number one in the gifted sub standings this month. We got Burgles at number 1. We got Kijiji Genie at number 2, and we have Dr. Maggot at number 3. Talk about brave heroes. Oh my gosh, this is outrageous. Our finest goons. Our very finest goons. Yeah, I'm really not faking this. I'm really not faking this at all. I would love it if someone kicked me or Dr. Maggot off the top 3. Kijiji Genie's spot there is just it's up for grabs. Trudeau's putting the sleepy chemicals in the whatever. I literally had 2 Diet Cokes. Like, how many fucking Diet Cokes do I need to drink here? Like we're saying, it's like don't have a caffeine-free Diet Coke. That's why you can't sleep. That's why you can't sleep. Why am I so tired now? I've been chugging this shit all day. I had a cup of coffee this morning and 2 Diet Cokes. How much more caffeine do I need here? This is absurd. Diet Coke is bad for you. I think that's incorrect, actually. I think doctors have proven at this point that it's good for you. We've established this. It's like 99% water, beautiful, pure, life-giving water. Blah. Still only 10 subs to go, folks. 2 heroic 5 sub gifters, 1 extremely heroic 10 sub gifter. Could do it. Could get me across. What do you say? What do you say, chat? I was baptized in Diet Coke. That would be so sick. Got 7 espresso cups today. You're crushing it. Coca-Cola's doctors don't count. I was talking about the fake sugar messing with your insulin production. I don't think that's true. I don't believe in any of that shit.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Fake news. There's no 0 calories. That's the important thing for me. TRRS traveling ministry will baptize you in Diet Coke at the border. Kijiji, thanks so much for another gifted sub. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Sunny Solo, oh my gosh. Thank you for 4 gifted subs. Sunny Solo, really coming through. Sunny Solo with the Diet Coke bit badge too. That's good. Folks, is there a 5 sub gifter out there? Is there a beautiful 5 sub gifter? How about some Panera charged lemonade? So good it can kill. I would love to get that shit, actually. I would love that. We don't have Panera bread. Is there, I don't know, Toronto chatters, is there Panera bread in Toronto? I don't think we have it here. Jay, I can't talk anymore. I'm serious. I'm too tired. Don't mock me, please. We do have Panera bread, and it's the definition of mid. Okay. Folks, is there a final 5 sub gifter? That's the question. Just a mere measly 5 subs away. Look at this. Look how close it is. What if I just keep poking it? Sometimes if I just poke the number. Sometimes when I just poke it enough, something happens. It stimulates something. I think that's a good way of looking at it, Matron's Militia. Must you people turn everything into like a sex thing? I'm looking at you, Lodane and Sean. Must you? Yes, okay, well, that's fair. You both said yes, alright. I just like... It's like sometimes I feel like I can physically just... Like... Yeah. Audio only listeners just losing their minds. Oh, Kijiji, that sounds so horrible. That just sounds miserable. Is the mic still hissing? Do I still have mic hiss? I'm sure some of you would like mic hiss. I'm sure there's many of you out there watching right now that would love to have mic hiss. Still almost there. Let me see if I can unplug this. Sometimes it gets jammed and you just need to unplug it. Like really push it around in there. Something obstructing. Obstructing the number. This bit is just not working. I guess it's just gonna have to remain obstructed. And yeah, it's a back scratcher. I got an itchy back, alright? Yes, I do. Yes, I do, Lodane. I got music to upload, and I got...
You can count on me. You're gonna have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Yeah, that's true, Kijiji. That's true. Thank you, Dr. Maggot, for helping out there. And Joe, thank you for the 69 bits. 69, that's the sex number. Ilodin, I got music to upload and producers to whack. Oh boy. Thanks for tuning in today, everybody. Thank you for tuning in today. I appreciate you all so much. I'll be back tomorrow. I'll be back tomorrow to round out the week. I'll be back tomorrow to try and round out the week. Got a big meeting tomorrow, too. Got an important meeting. Some shit might be getting determined tomorrow. That's going to be interesting. For the old Robster. See how that goes. New shit has come to light. Absolutely. So I'll be back tomorrow, same time, folks. We'll finish out the week strong. Thanks again for tuning in today. I appreciate you all very much. Please take care. Goodbye.